New this morning, a Senate committee hearing just wrapped up where members of the House Armed Services Committee questioned top Navy officials on the release of fuel from Red Hill and its impact on Oahu's drinking water. And joining us now live with the details is Congressman Kai Kahele. Good morning, Congressman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Christine, thank you so much for having me.
I did want to ask you, first of all, about the change that was announced yesterday. The Navy says it will comply with the Health Department's emergency order to suspend operations at the fuel storage facility. Up until now, the Navy had been fighting this order. What do you think about this change, and what did the Navy say today?
So that is correct, Christine. The Navy, I think the biggest takeaway from this hearing was, especially for what's on the minds of the people of Hawaii, is that the Navy will comply with the states and the Department of Health's emergency order that, remember, was originally issued on the 6th of December and was fought, was resisted, was contested over the course of December. When the final decision order was made on January 3rd, they still wasn't sure whether the Navy was going to comply or not. And they affirmatively announced to the committee today that they will comply with that order. That order requires them to procure a third-party independent company to assess the entire situation, report back to the Department of Health by the 2nd of February, that's in 23 days, come up with a plan, but they have committed to defueling the Red Hill fuel facility as part of that emergency order.
Did they say why they changed their mind and decided to comply with the order?
They did not speak to that. Of course, your entire congressional delegation was united in calling them to comply with the order, to not fight the order, to not take this into the courts. Congressman Case asked a really important question of the Navy, whether or not they believe that the state has jurisdiction over this matter and that has the ability to regulate underground fuel storage facilities like Red Hill, and also approve or deny a permit to operate those facilities. That is a question that will need to be answered by the Navy, but for all intents and purposes, they are going to comply with the order, and they have directed top Navy leaders to do that.
Anything else new that they revealed this morning that you'd like to share with the residents of Hawaii?
Still no definitive timeline on when people can get back into their homes. Right now, they said the current taxpayer bill for this mess is well over $250 million. The other thing that they talked about was the remediation of the Red Hill well, which they plan to start flushing and discharging millions of gallons of water into Halawa Stream, treated water, albeit, but treated water into Halawa Stream by the 20th of January. That requires the Department of Health and the EPA to also be in agreement. It also requires a national pollutant elimination discharge permit before they do that. I have highly suggested to the Navy that they brief the community, especially the affected communities around that area, people that utilize Halawa Stream for fishing, for crabbing, before that water flows into Pearl Harbor, that they make sure that the community knows what they're doing, and the Department of Health and the EPA, the Army and the Navy can all stand together and say this is the best solution to remediate Red Hill well before they pull an ounce of water out of that Red Hill well and discharge that into Halawa Stream. So that is something that they discussed today as well.
You're encouraging the Navy to communicate with the public, be more transparent. They do have to make up a plan in this order. What do you hope is included in this plan moving forward?
Well, rebuilding trust and confidence is paramount. We are at an inflection point between the state of Hawaii and the United States Navy and what that future looks like. But part of this plan also needs to analyze the entire Red Hill facility. We learned that the facility has appropriated up to 40 positions to manage this facility, but only 30 of those positions are filled. And of those 30 positions, only 3 active duty military members fill those positions. These are usually high-ranking military officials that don't have any experience in petroleum and how to handle a facility like Red Hill. So if we are going to move forward at all, the Navy needs to treat this facility like the strategic asset it is and put the allocated resources towards it. I also think we need to look at this facility as it was built 80 years ago. Not much has changed. And so analyzing every part of the system, the integrity, the tanks. There are 3 tanks that have not been touched in over 40 years. I want to know if those 3 tanks are even safe to hold fuel, and I think that's something that the people of Hawaii will want to know as well. There's several tanks that have expired their timeline for being clean, inspected, and repaired. And there's some tanks that probably do not meet the current API 653 standards for the tank structural integrity. So those are things that I think this investigation will and this work plan will be able to address.
And speaking of the people of Hawaii, finally, Congressman, what do you want to say to the people of Hawaii, including the families who still can't return to their homes, other families who might be concerned about the water they're drinking, as well as the taxpayers?
You know, it's something that is on my mind every day. You know, the most important job I have is to make sure that the people of Hawaii are safe. That includes our military families. It includes our civilian families. It includes all the people of Hawaii, especially the almost 1 million residents that live on the island of Oahu, and to make sure that the Navy is being held accountable. You know, there are thousands of families that still are not living in their homes or are living in homes that do not have safe, clean drinking water. They're living in hotels in Waikiki. There are non-military families down in Iroquois Point that are being affected as well. And so this is something that has been a nightmare for military families since early December. And we need to do everything we can. We need to move heaven and earth to get them back into their homes, give them the trust and confidence that they can drink their water, they can bathe their children in their water, and also at the same time make sure the Navy is fully compliant with this order, that it's not just lip service, it's not just something that was decided to be said in the last few days, but they actually follow through with that order. And I promise the people of Hawaii on the House Armed Services Committee that I will do exactly that.
All right, like you said, Congressman, it has been a nightmare for a lot of families, and unfortunately, a nightmare that won't end soon. Thank you so much for joining us live here on KHON2.